Today, I'll be reading The One Shot, A Father's Headache by Sleepy Owings, with 3,522 words. Summary. Shota Aizawa loves his son. Truly he does. He was the love of his life, tying in right next to his amazing wife, who was a very, very close second. His son, after all, will always be first in his life. And no matter how chaotic or perhaps even a tad bit homicidal his son may be, considering the scarily amount of times he's seen or simply known his son has done something that has caused lasting harm to someone, who rightfully deserved it, of course, Shota cared for his teenage son. Shota would do anything for his son, and anything would also mean waking up at 2:30 in the morning to go pick up Izuku, who was carried off to the police station. Inko. Zuku locked up again. Be back. Incoherently, Shota muttered to his wife as he shuffled out of bed. Just before he was out of the room, he heard the bed creaking and tired whispers of the woman saying, "Again?" Izuku. Tired and exasperated, Shota said as he stared at the all-too-energetic teen for his taste. His son didn't seem to mind too much that he had on the cold and metal handcuffs that Shota knew were uncomfortable, while he was held in a temporary cell for heaven knows why. "Hi, Dad. Uncle Tuska has been a dear. He didn't even question me this time, just straight to the holding cell and something about calling you." The teen bounced on the bed that was hardly holding itself up. The creaks and moans could be loudly heard, almost as if the bed was loudly protesting in Izuku's movements. It probably was. "Sakuji, what did he do now?" The man sighed as he pinched his nose. "He shot someone. He fucking shot a thug. Why? Ask him. I remember him when he was a teacher, Dad. He was a bad man. I don't like him, and I hate him even more. Turned creepy. He was the one who got fired for, the assault charges. Fucking hate that guy." Izuku went on a rant, and Shota really wanted to know how his son got a gun. And never mind. He got it from Snipe for his birthday. He strongly regrets that. "You're grounded. You know this, right?" "And you're not getting your gun or any of your knives back until I say so." "Okay, Dad." Izuku was too used to this routine to be sad. Shota just sighed. "Papa, just tell me who did it," Izuku asked calmly, as calmly his injured father, who was laying in the hospital. UA started a couple of days ago, yet his class was already attacked, and now on top of that, he had to make sure his son doesn't kill anyone. And yes, Shota was serious about that statement. "No, Izuku. They won't ever bother you or your class again, Dad. Just tell me, and no one will ever know they existed. That's what I'm afraid of, Izuku." "Huh?" Izuku tilted his head, his eyes shining doe-like and innocently, as if he wasn't talking about murder. Shota almost found it cute. Almost. "You're not allowed to kill the League of Villains, Izuku." Shota, his tone serious, and one he rarely had to use on his son, but he really doesn't want Izuku to do anything stupid. Though Izuku just smiled. He smiled a sweet, gentle smile that one you would see before edging dangerous storms that was surely to appear before he responded smoothly. "Who said I was going to kill them?" Shota decided to not question that. He wasn't going to unpack that. He'll leave it to Inko. A question that Shota got when new people tended to meet his son was if Izuku was a villain. The answer Shota had to that was no. After all, Izuku doesn't do anything for nothing. But Shota knows his son is morally different than those around him. While most choose peace and to leave the situation alone, Izuku chooses to look peace in its eyes and absolutely tear it to pieces, bit by bit, slowly until there wasn't anything left but the truth and perhaps chaos. So, no. His son wasn't a villain, but he was no hero. He was a strange middle that Shota was proud to claim. He was morally gray, and he loved him the way he was, even if it tended to cause Shota more headaches than he'd like to admit. It was in the middle of class when his phone rang, and Shota, by God, he knew that ringtone without having to look at the contact. It was his wife, Inko, and she hardly calls him at work, not unless it's an emergency or Izuku is locked up again. That too. Shota felt himself sigh. Glad it was a free period and not caring about any nosy children and answering his phone. Inko? Shota muttered, and he heard a heaving sigh that sounded tired. Izuku was locked up again. Noted. He was found tearing down the commission. He made the leader bow down to him. He wasn't locked up, but he got house arrest for hacking into government files. In the back, Shota heard the obnoxious shout of his son screaming, "Free Hawks!" And Shota wasn't sure if he was impressed or found it a headache. It was a weird mix of both, mostly proud of his son for pulling such achievements. How did he even access those files? I don't know, but now Hawks has claimed him as his IS. We now have Hawks as a son, even if it legally isn't possible. Once again, in the back, he heard a loud, "Damn right," from Hawks, and a sound that suspiciously sounded like Izuku kicking the hero. Shota inhaled. Okay, he thought this was fine. At least his son wasn't locked away again. Shota exhaled. Anything else? Shota questioned as he muffled talks and perhaps a bit of scolding from Inko before she relented. He says he's working on the league next. I swear to. Shota had a feeling his son was going to do something stupid, more stupid than usual. I know, honey. There is no talking him out of it. Wait. Izuku, stop that. Where did you even get that? Shota, I gotta go. Izuku found a new plaything. Rushing, Inko hung up the phone. Shota didn't even want to know what this new plaything of Izuku's was. They were never just toys. Shota stared at his phone with a blank expression. He was partly worried for Inko, but his wife, she was a strong woman. She could handle Izuku just fine, and if things go south, Hawks is apparently there. Mr. Aizawa, who are you talking to? The curious Ashido asked. Her smile grew cheekily. No one. Get back to work, he replied, and Ashido pouted at the lack of answers, but knew not to test his authority. Arson. Izuku committed arson. Fucking arson. Shota wasn't sure why he was even surprised. It was bound to happen. His son had done crazy things before, such as stabbed someone, shot someone, nearly sure someone probably died, but he never questioned it. Easier for deniability. Just why? He questioned Izuku, who grinned brightly as he tilted his head. Why is such a powerful question, Dad. Why do we do anything at all? We never know. Yet we still do things we do. So you tell me why. Izuku, his eyes glowing a toxic green as he purred out his vague answer. Shota wisely chose not to touch that subject. Dad. Keenly. Mom. So, I did a thing, Izuku said as he shuffled into the room with a smile that meant no good. Is it legal, I asked? Hawks questioned, and Izuku shrugged, muttering under his breath. Anything is legal as long as you don't get caught. Okay, so not legal. Hawks settled on, throwing popcorn and catching it flawlessly. Shota partly wondered if the bird-brained hero lived with them now, or more or less stayed with them whenever he was in Masatafu. Shota assumed it was the latter. Okay, so I may have hacked into the files of the commission again because I was bored, and I'm on house arrest, plus you took my weapons, but anyway, I found dirt on some heroes. I don't like where this is going, Inko wearily said, narrowing her eyes at her son, as she rightfully should have been suspicious. I had a nice talk with the new leader to fix their shit, Izuku said calmly as he fumbled with the cuff on his sleeves. By nice talk, Shota prodded his son, who had a wisely different definition of a nice talk. I nicely talked to the commission and their leaders. Izuku's smile never fell, but his tone had a wearing edge to it as he repeated what he said. Okay, so you calmly talked to the Hero Commission leaders? Noted. Shota dropped the topic with ease. After all, it isn't something He should know he wasn't going to pry, not unless it was necessary. Good. Just know shit is gonna go down, Izuku giggled before taking his leave out the living room. Do I be afraid? Hawks questioned. He likes you, dear, so I wouldn't worry. I would instead kick back and see what happens, what Izuku has done this time. Inko answered plainly, as if she was too used to Izuku and his shenanigans. Maybe because she absolutely was. Izuku was livid, and that was putting it nicely. He knew he shouldn't have listened to his dad when he said, "Don't mess with the League." That he could do anything else but touch the League. Izuku shouldn't have listened. Class 1A was attacked again during training camp that was secure and was supposed to be safe. The League terrorized the class. They had to to kidnap someone from Class 1A, from his father's class. Had it been a different class, Izuku probably wouldn't say he cared. But Izuku knew how fond of Class 1A his father felt, even if he didn't show it. Izuku may have ignored the first attack, the second attack, and the third attack, but this he refused to ignore. Sorry, Dad, Izuku muttered while he infiltrated the villains' hideout where they currently held their kidnapping. Anyone want a party? Izuku said, his tone lazy and relaxed. Not at all like the crazed and dangerous glow in his toxic green eyes. The way he stood, Izuku held himself. He was the predator who was stalking his prey. He was the one who was in control, even if the League did not know it yet. And he, Izuku, felt how his grin grew wider, his teeth baring in a feral, untamed, and ferocious way. He would be the one to end the League of Villains. Who's this NPC? Let him in here. Someone get him. Shigaraki raged, just as he took it upon his own action to try to attack him, despite sending his own orders to attack. Though Izuku, he easily sidestepped the villain, and in a quick blinding motion, he was able to decapitate his wrist from his arm. Oops, my hand slipped, Izuku giggled lightly as he brought the bloody blade to his tongue, sliding it down his tongue, tasting the sour metallic blood from the villain leader. There was a beat of silence before an ear-piercing scream took over. Izuku, he laughed blissfully as he danced his way around the villain, finishing the job of injecting his knife within the gut of Shigaraki, who choked out a yell, but Izuku, he really didn't like the voice of the man who caused harm to his dad, to his family. You scream too much. Izuku, like a whiny child who wasn't sending out brutal attacks to the leader of villains, complained as he easily kicked down Shigaraki to the floor. Really, the man made a gurgling noise as Izuku easily stomped on the impaled stab wound that was deep within his stomach. Shigaraki bled out as Izuku turned his gaze to the terrified villains who didn't dare go near him. Anyone else want to play? Izuku said, his eyes fluttering as his tone lightly inviting. Horrified shrills of Toga came through, while loudly gagging of Dabi was heard as he crooked his nose up and looked away. Good, Izuku thought as he made his way over to the kidnapped student. No one had tried to stop him, and Izuku easily removed the chains, keeping said hero student in his jail. Tokoyami, right? Izuku questioned. His once crazed and near bloodless look was wiped clean off with a much softer and gentler one. Yes, but I must implore, who are you? You seem to have a father of darkness tender arms cradling around you. Tokoyami slowly questioned, and Izuku merely smiled larger to said question. Call me Izuku. Surprisingly, interfering with the investigation of the kidnapping of a student and League of Villains left Izuku in a very familiar place, handcuffed and in an interview room being questioned by his favorite detective, Sakuji. Izuku, this is serious. You know that you could have killed Shigaraki? Like I haven't nearly killed someone before. Izuku rolled his eyes, and he would have thrown his hands up to further prove his point, but doing so would hurt, and he thinks Sakuji perfectly understands from the way his frown dropped into an exasperated deadpan. Aizawa Izuku, please, you know what I mean. You interjected yourself in an ongoing investigation, Sakuji said, as he sighed tiredly. The man needs to be paid more for how often he deals with Izuku. He causes more trouble in his pinky toe than any person could wish. They touched what is mine, Izuku simply said, grinning, leaning up on the table as if he was about to tell a secret. And they hurt what was mine. Dad said not to do anything, but they took it too far. What's done is their fault, and theirs alone, Izuku hissed out as he fell back into his chair. Sakuji sighed. He just sighed deeply as he cued over an officer. Your dad is going to be on the way. For now, you know the drill. Yep, jail cells that way. All right, class. I'd like to introduce you to a problem child of mine. Izuku, Shota lazily said, moving his arm over to his son, who stood proudly beside him. What's good, hoes? The name is Izuku. After Izuku's appropriate introduction, and Ida nearly having a stroke from it, Kaminari could be heard wheezing as he spoke up. Bro, be my best friend, he yelled out as Izuku winked and gave a grin. Bro, I gotcha. Izuku agreed easily, and Shota felt sudden regret travel through him as more of the chaotic members of the class started to speak. So, it's totally not fair if Kami Babe gets to be your new bestie, but not me, Ashido said as she pouted, giving a pleading puppy eyes. Who said I couldn't have two best friends? Smoothly, Izuku said. Once again, another person spoke up and said person was Kirishima. And 3, bro. Wait, me 4. More people started claiming his son. Shoto regretted ever bringing Izuku to his class. You're the boy with Father Darkness. Tokiyami approached his son one day when Shota allowed Izuku to come to the dorms. Shota had tried not to hear the conversation and rather work on papers that needed to be graded. But of course the two teens decided to have it in front of him. Daddy Darkness at your service, Izuku said, with a tone that was teasing as much as it was coy and even a bit flirty. No, Shota did not snap his head up in surprise when he heard that tone. No, sir. He minded his business as he should. You piqued my interest. You're riveting and even arcane. Tokiyami sounded a bit fondly interested, and a bit curious as he tilted his head to the side while he questioned Izuku. How was that? He asked, and Izuku gave a chuckle and a wink with a finger pressed to his lips as an answer. Huh, how queer. You truly are a Delphic one, Izuku-kun. Shota decided to tune out the rest of his son's conversation, but he found it nice to know him and Tokiyami were growing to be close friends. Probably a bit too close, but he digressed. How do you get locked up so often, Izuku? Shota asked one fair afternoon after picking his son up from the police station. Shota had to call in Namuri to take his shift at UA, so he could see what his chaotic son had done this time. Apparently he poisoned a man, and said man is hanging on by a thread to life. If said man died, Shota ain't asking no questions, no sir. Izuku cheekily grinned, as he shrugged and tilted his head in a curious manner before he answered. I'd probably be arrested more if I got caught for half the shit I've done, Pops. Shota didn't question his son anymore, but he silently thought he should have sent Hawks to get his gremlin son. Shota, he should have expected this sooner or later, really. Exposing Class 1A to Izuku was terrible from the start, and now it was coming back to bite him in the ass. One late night during the weekend and a day that Aizawa begrudgingly allowed Izuku's friends to stay over, he got a call from a very familiar number, a number from the Masutafu Police Department. Shota inhaled largely before he had called out to his wife. Inko, it's your go, Shota, to pick him up. She dismissed him as she turned over in the bed and pulled the covers over her shoulders. But Inko, if they did anything stupid, every last ass is kicked. Fair enough. Shota watched as Inko pulled herself out of bed and stole one of his cat-themed hoodies and slipped on her slippers before she left. Well then, if the kids thought he was scary, they were soon going to learn his wife was a nightmare. What did he do now, Saguchi? Inko asked as she eyed every last guilty child besides Bakugo, Izuku, and Shinzo. Shinzo and Izuku looked happy at the mess they caused, and Bakugo simply didn't care. He had his same scowl on his face. Well, Izuku incited a riot. He what? Izuku screeched, her tone filled with disbelief. Sakuji sighed as he shook his head and flipped through a page of a book he was reading, which was specially made for Izuku. Currently, it was 393 chapters long. Izuku and Tokoyami started the riot. They both have charges of vigilante along with assault and arson for locking villains inside a warehouse and burning said building. Harming the villains. Shinzo has aid in the vigilante charge. Todoroki property damage and arson along with vigilante. Izuku has Asui has vigilante charges. Araka has Araka vigilante charges, and both Bakugo and Ashido have aid in arson and vigilante charges. And lastly, Kirishima and Sero have aid in vigilante charges and aid in property damage. By the time Sakuji was done listing off the charges, Inko was staring at all the teams with a certain level of sheer disappointment that only a parent could achieve. Damn it, Izuku, your weapon collection, notebooks, and your electronics, I want them when we get back home. The rest of you, let's go before I allow Suka here to lock you up. Inko spoke so seriously that it was hard to tell if she wasn't telling the truth or not. No one dared test Inko on whether or not she was. Shota decided it was a calm day. His phone rang, the ringtone of it being the chief of Matsutafu calling him about Izuku. He let it go to voicemail. Shota took a drink of his coffee as he calmly laid back on the couch. His phone buzzed with text messages. He assumed it was also about Izuku. He wanted to ignore them, but the rapid and loud vibration was messing with the calming air he was trying to achieve, but failing to do so. Shota wanted to have a nice day. His room door was thrown open by his three friends, Yamada, Namari, and Hawk. And Shota wasn't going to have a nice day. God damn it. Sho! The green bean is locked up again, Yamada cried as Namari gave him a stroke on the loud blonde's back. Apparently, Izuku thought it would be a fun idea to punch All Might while the hero definitely deserved it. He still did it in broad daylight, so Hawks waved his hand around the air, and Shota only sighed. Damn it, Izuku. I really liked this fanfic. Personally, I think it was really good about how Izuku was a kind of like a vigilante and is just a complete crack fic, and with him being friends with 1A but not going there. I think that was really awesome too. You should definitely check out this writer, and that's all that I have for today. Thank you for listening.